couldn't write their names. 7 of them didn't know the alphabet. So I write the superintendent of the school a letter. Dear sir, this school is a garbage heap. This is an embarrassment to us all. This is awful. I probably should have waited till the second or third day. He didn't like it much. But I started this year teaching. Fell in love with these kids. Just fell in love with them. And had one of the great years of my life. At the end of that year, the superintendent fired me for gross neglect of duty, conduct unbecoming of a professional educator, AWOL, and insubordination. It is difficult, ladies and gentlemen, to get a job teaching in the South with this on your recommendations. So I started writing this book, and I wrote it in a fury, I wrote it in a blaze, I was enraged. And it's a small town, and people will come up to me and say, what happened to you on that island? You were such a nice boy. And I just set it down. And in 3 months of furious writing, I put this book together. It would later come out as The Water is Wide. But I had a problem. Conroy has a problem. McClure Press, who did the first book, said they would do the second book. I said, that's wonderful, thanks so much. I went down to Willie Shepard, I got a loan for $6,000 this time. Then somebody came through town and told me I needed a New York agent. And I said, I'm not an actor. And they said, please, please, of course. Yeah, I wanted to, you all know this. In every encounter I had with New York, I wanted them not to think I was naive or a dope. So this guy gave me the name of his agent, Julian Bach of New York City. So I'm terrified, I'm scared to death. But I finally get up there to call Julian Bach. And I get him on the phone. And I said, Mr. Bach, this is Pat Conroy from Beaufort, South Carolina. I have written a book that I think you will find has some value, possibly even significance. Julian says, how in the hell did you get my name? I'm going to fire the secretary. I can't get it. He said, I have losers like you call every single day. And losers, I cannot stand. I tell her not to let you through. What is the problem? And he says, I've never heard of Beaufort. I have barely heard of South Carolina. I don't represent Southern writers, and I'm glad. He hangs up. I write him a letter. Dear Mr. Bach, obviously your soul has withered in the canyons of New York City. Whatever goodness or virtue your mother may have seen in your eyes when you were born turned out to be completely false. And I have rarely met a more nauseating human being. And I learned so you went to Harvard. Is that how gentlemen from Harvard conduct themselves? He liked the letter. He calls me back up. Perhaps I've been too hasty, Mr. He said, send me your manuscript, what you have, so we can read. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the Marine fighter pilot who's been the bane of my existence did not let me take typing. I have 200 pages untyped. I've been fired from a job. My wife, my mother, called everybody who was still talking to me in Beaufort, not a large number, and who typed, an even smaller number. They would run over to get a chapter. My mother would stand by the front door, my wife stand by the back door, and they hand out a chapter here, a chapter there. When do we have to have it back? Tomorrow. Pat's got himself a New York agent who's going to take home for the weekend read. All these wonderful women, all over women, they're wonderful. They take them home, they type them up. They get them back the next day. Mr. Calhoun kept the post office open 5 extra minutes. And we sent special delivery. Remember, there was nothing back then. We got it up there fast. We sent that manuscript special delivery. Now, here was a mistake I made, since I didn't type. King Calhoun used onion skin paper. Somebody used blue paper. Somebody used long yellow sheets. Harriet Keisley used her personal stationery. We took these as they come in, and we put them all together, and we sent this manuscript to Julia of New York City. Julian gets the manuscript because, by the way, I have died. And anyway, I can tell you, you send off a manuscript, you die. It is horrifying. He calls me up. And I'm like, Pat, you're a New York agent. So I stride manfully to the phone, and he said, Pat, we haven't read a single word, but we think it's the cutest thing we've ever seen. And he said, I suggest you let me get it typed up in New York City. He said, Pat, when you ever do another manuscript, you need to number it a little better. He said, your first chapter is 1 to 25. Your second is 1 to 15. Your third is 1 to 13. Your fourth. And Mr. Locke, I'm so sorry. It's unprofessional. He calls me back a month later, and he said, Pat, Houghton Mifflin just called, and they have agreed to do your book. And he said, Houghton Mifflin, the editor, they were the publisher of Thoreau, Emerson, Henry James, Edith Wharton, Emily Dickinson. And now they would like to do your book. And I think you would like to know the history of that company before you agree. And he said in a line that he'd never let me forget. He said, here's his line first. He said, here's the great news, $7,500. I said, Julian, I can get it done a lot cheaper here at Houston. Stunned silence. And Julian says, Pat, my God, we're naive down there in South. He said, you do understand they pay you, not the other way around. So this began, this career. It's been interesting to watch how this thing has, used to give talks when books first came out. I'd give talks in telephone booths and kayaks. And there's been a slow, gradual accretion over the years that is absolutely amazing. And I remember there was one period of my career where Houghton Mifflin was upset that, I wasn't doing any better in selling books. So they had an idea. So they sent me down to Dallas, and they set me up in a signing next to 2 famous writers, real famous. So I thought it was going to be great. I was going to be with famous writers. And Irving Stone was right next to me. And then on the other side of me was a woman I had not heard of, but her name was Janet Daly. I don't know if you all have heard. Slinky, North Alabama type girl. So I sit there, and Irving Stone has